It's Thursday again, tell everybody to lock in, grab some popcorn, a drink, and go and throw your AirPods in. It's the 1 hour show, constantly speaking facts. Bulletproof stats are always shooting from Matt. And when it comes to Kyle, you getting numbers and style. Jake is gonna educate you, he has that knowledge on file. Players, step your game up, don't be sluggish or lazy. Or Jimmy J might hit you with a shaky baby. Catch him on YouTube or any podcast platform. Breaking all the news down like Shaq does the backboards. No hot takes, this is where the hottest debate's at. Now kick your feet up, cause it's time for straight facts.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains, brought to you by the Up On Game Podcast Network. It's your boy, Jimmy J. My full roster's here with me. Jake Galley, Kyle Sirik, Ed Stat, Matt Robinson. These three are in panic mode. These three, their panties are in a bunch because their series is going 3-2. My series is also 3-2. My series is also 3-2. But your series is 3-2 in a way different manner than my series is.
I mean,
3-2.
The biggest difference between my series and your series is that you don't have Doc Rivers as your coach.
Yeah, huge.
You have the guy that
huge
we
difference.
Kept and not let Brett Brown go another year.
Yeah, but that's a huge difference. That's why you're more of a panic mode than I am.
You ever see the SpongeBob? I know you have the SpongeBob GIF where they're all running around. It's all the SpongeBob's in his brain running around. Everything's on fire.
On fire, yeah.
That is how like Sixers Twitter, Rights to Ricky Sanchez group, which I'm in on Twitter. Every Sixers fan I know is like already doom and gloom. It's over. We're done for.
And it's funny because you guys were doing that after the Game 5 loss. And I even said after the Game 5 loss, like, calm down. This is a team with championship DNA. To think they're going to roll over and get swept is ridiculous. And then, you know, now we're I mean, I'm sorry, after the game 4 loss is what I said. And then
I was fine after Game 4.
That's what I'm saying. The Game 4, I'm chilling. And then Game 5, I'm like, oh, now we're standing on the barrel because I admit I wouldn't want to go back to Toronto for a Game 6 either. It kind of seems like
it was only 8 months ago now that we did the same type of collapse against the Hawks, and this one will be even worse.
It's wild that you guys don't want to go to a Game 7 at home. That's actually kind of crazy.
Why would we?
You have no choice to.
Of course you would.
Obviously, you don't want to.
I guess in the circumstances, you wouldn't want to have to go to a Game 7 at home.
You really have to hate yourself if you're a Sixers fan if you buy tickets to Game 7. Because you're spending money to go to potentially the worst sporting event you'll ever be at. You're going to spend like $150 to watch your Hawks.
It's tough.
I never think about going to the game.
The same reason that you just laid out is exactly why Raptors Game 6 in the series that they ended up losing, obviously on the Kawhi shot, to get in the door. 7. Well, that was in Game 7. Yeah. Game 6 was in Wells Fargo Center. It was $60 to get in the door. $60 for a playoff game, like Game 6.
How do you turn that down? How do you say no to that?
I mean, I didn't. I was at the top of the stadium, and it was an awesome game. Jimmy Butler went off. But that does illustrate your point, Matt. Like, there is dread in Philadelphia. Do not get it twisted.
He's right. Because even if you win, it doesn't feel that good. It's more a sense of relief than joy.
Oh, my God.
Thank God. The city gets to survive another day. All right. So it sounds like you guys have learned a lot of things in your playoff travels as Sixers fans. So we're going to go into this first segment talking about the NBA playoffs and what we've learned through all these first-round matchups, because I think I want to treat this as a little bit of kind of two things. One, things we've learned just within the series itself, but also things we've learned like that kind of maybe that we didn't know or that we thought we knew in the regular season, and now it's kind of flipped now that we've seen them through a first-round playoff matchup. But the first one, we'll go through the most interesting, maybe not the most scintillating series, but to me the most interesting series, and that's the Nets or the Celtics sweeping the Nets 4-0, and the Nets end up going home with KD and Kyrie, the favorite to win the title coming into the NBA season. And now most of them probably have already hit their vacation destinations, which is wild. So I think the first thing that we've learned is the Nets need somebody else, whether that's Ben Simmons, whether that's James Harden, whether that's Jesus himself. The Nets need somebody else. That's the first thing that we learned in this series.
And Nets fans, don't say we didn't tell you so.
But they didn't even get them yet.
I don't feel bad. I should say
I feel
a little bad
yeah.
because I've been there. I've been there where I'm like, he's walking around like he's Jordan. We've got Jordan. We've got Defensive Player of the Year. Oh, he only needs to play 10 games. Oh, he only needs to add a jump shot. I mean, we'll list off whatever it may be. This dude is a number one charlatan I've ever seen, like on a large scale. Like you could put him up there with like some of the best con artists of all time. So I do feel bad for Brooklyn fans in that regard. But you're right. I mean, if he would have been added to this series, the number one deficient point for the for the Nets was the Celtics' attack close to the basket. You look at Grant Williams and Al Horford leading the team in offensive rating in the series. 146 for Horford, 152 offensive rating for Grant Williams.
You can't allow Grant Williams to go off on you like that. That's just a terrible defensive team. Like, it's just a terrible defensive team at the end of the day.
And it was without their DPOY candidate. The guy who didn't win was still on the list. Robert Williams came back, only played 2 games in the series. So that's to me where I look. Ben Simmons would have came in and done wonders for the team.
It's just wild when you look at a playoff series and you think like the combination of KD and Kyrie at the end of the day just was not enough to get it done. Like, I think that's just kind of wild.
Well, I think the most understated part of this whole thing is everyone is doing the whole, oh, look at KD at 33 compared to LeBron at 33. I have a couple of problems with that.
Ridiculous.
No one argued that KD was better than LeBron all time. I've never heard people actually articulate that.
You shouldn't. That's not an argument that I'll stick around for often.
It's like an absurd thing.
Yeah.
And also, KD's coming off an Achilles tear. Like, he's 33. He's coming off an Achilles tear. He had an MCL sprain during the season, and he's playing arguably the best defense in the NBA. Him struggling is as much of it as, oh, KD didn't show up, as Boston defense great. Oh, it's also a 33-year-old coming off the most severe injury you can have in basketball and a different minor MCL injury earlier this year. So I think that can't be really forgotten about. The Kyrie stuff is just, no one should pay him money. Because he was so horrible this series. Like, Durant actually, like, tried. Kyrie was just kind of they
were there without a game plan. That's what it looks like when you're there without a game plan. You're there literally just hoping you beat the best defensive team in the league.
I've got to defend Sixers fans about Ben Simmons, because when we deluded ourselves about him, he was actually playing basketball.
Yeah, that's true.
We turned on him when he stopped playing basketball. The Nets fans were talking him up when he was just sitting on the bench.
Saying he's walking around like Jordan is.
Looking like a clown.
It was hilarious.
Oh, my goodness.
And then retrospect,
this was
like an all-time joke.
What we've learned about the Nets, and now that they're fully swept, fully out of contention of this year's NBA season, is you get a chance to really look back and reflect, and you can really do the Nets in the last 2 years when the change of the franchise, they bring in these guys. But when you think about it, and this is something that I've been thinking about with the Nets, they never felt like a team.
Yeah,
this was never. We talked about months ago how when they traded Harden, their big three with Harden only played less than 15 games together. Kyrie could only play home games or only play away games. KD was getting hurt sometimes. Harden was missing games sometimes. They were never on the court together. Sometimes, most of the time, really, you didn't have 2 of them together, right? Add on top of it, you bring in a head coach who's never coached in the league before, right? You trade at the deadline this year for a guy who's not only not going to play basketball, but for other guys that just change what this team's going to look like on the court, who now you need to adjust even more to. So for me with the Nets, it's like, do they need another guy? Probably, yeah, but they need to be a team. Look on the other side of the ball. A team that did it the right way, quote unquote, who drafted these players, who's really had the same core, even went out to bring their core back. No, let's bring Al Horford back. Let's bring Daniel Tice back. And it's a sweep, a convincing sweep. So that's the real takeaway for me with the Nets going forward and looking back really is this was never a team. It never felt like a team. It never looked like a team. Even when they went on win streaks here and there, it was like, okay, their best player is hot. The team wasn't hot, right? Like Bruce Brown wasn't giving you 25, and I don't think he's a long-term piece. I don't think a lot of guys on this team aren't a long-term piece. So on their sense, they need to work on that. And on the Celtics sense, this is a congratulations. I mean, they deserve this, and they're going to look good this playoffs.
When the Celtics and Nets made the infamous trade for Garnett and Pierce and all the picks, which resulted in Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, etc., the core of this Celtics team, everyone laughs at that as such a failure for the Nets because all they did was make the second round once. That's exactly what they did this time. And whether the Rockets do with their picks, what's possible, like they have nothing for the future. The amount of picks they gave up to get Harden is astronomical, and they're fortunate that Kyrie and Durant came in free agency, but it's just as much of a failure as the Garnett Pierce trade.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at this season as a failure for them. And I like what you said that, going back to the KD point, that's a 33-year-old coming off an Achilles, and this is a guy who didn't imagine he was going to have to shoulder this much of a workload. This is why I teamed up with, at first, Kyrie Irving and James Harden. This wasn't all supposed to fall on me and my bum Achilles coming back as a 33-year-old. Young Bucks were supposed to take this, and I'm supposed to really shoulder the legwork just in the playoffs. But KD was the only model of consistency for this Nets team all season. He was the only dude who would show up willingly and hoop of the stars. Kyrie could only do it half the time, and James Harden didn't want to do it because Kyrie could only do it half the time. So for him to shoulder all of that and to be one of the only focal points that Boston as a team has to key into to go to a playoff series is just too wild. That's why I say they needed somebody, whether it was not trading away James Harden and figuring out with him, or whether it was Ben Simmons actually coming to play basketball. It seemed like it was too much for KD at the end of the day.
It's back to the drawing board. I mean, you're bringing KD and Kyrie back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still massive potential for this team. Ben Simmons is on the roster. The team just needs to look completely different. But let's talk about the Celtics now.
Yeah, go.
On the other side of the ball. 4-0 sweep against what people thought was going to be the most compelling, you said it at the top, should have been a really interesting series. Didn't end up being
7th seed in NBA history.
Yeah. And now looking forward in the Eastern Conference, I know we were talking earlier in the show and you'll get into it. A lot of people are thinking, like you're thinking, Jake, that they're the favorites to win in the East now.
Yeah.
I mean, that regular season defense that we knew was going to be good in the playoffs, didn't know how good, didn't know if they'd still be the best defense in the league. Oh, they are.
By far.
Yeah, Tatum has now taken another step. Now, the conversation with Tatum used to be, is he a top 15, maybe a top 10 guy? I might say Jason Tatum is stamped as a top 10 player in the league now. And with the pieces and the defense around him and just a bunch of good players and a bunch of guys that play well together, this Celtics team really is championship in the view in my eyes right now.
This is, I think you could actually make the case, this is their best chance at a championship out of the whole Tatum and Brown era. And they've had some good teams, even a little before Tatum and Brown came into their own. They had those Isaiah Thomas led teams,
Terry Rozier led teams.
Yeah,
Terry Rozier participated teams.
Terry Rozier got further than Kyrie Irving did on the Celtics.
If Isaiah Thomas led a team, Terry Rozier led a team.
All right. Regardless, I think they do have a great shot. And what was most impressive, obviously, there was coming into the series, I think maybe it wasn't at the front of your mind, but there was a market advantage in the front court for them. What I'm impressed with is what they did with Kevin Durant. You said the Nets need someone. They would have been okay if Kevin Durant was himself. This was the third worst series in Kevin Durant's entire career if you look at field goal percentage. He shot 38.6% from the field in this series. The only other two times that he was below that was his first career ever playoff series in 2010 against the Lakers. They lost 4-2. He shot 35%. And then 2016 round one against the Mavs, they won that series 4-1. So both times he's a rookie, and then they win in 5 games. So it's not
Mavericks series is because one game he shot 7 of 33.
Right. and ultimately, those two losses, they don't really fall on Kevin Durant. Well, one of them wasn't a loss. That one loss, he's a rookie. This one is completely, in my opinion, squarely on, just quickly touching on the Nets, what Kevin Durant couldn't do, and looking forward for the Celtics, what they did to cause that.
Yeah.
Because you're having another 7-footer come to town. Most likely. I don't know. Nothing's set in stone. They play the 5th game tonight. We don't know what happens. But most likely they've got another 7-footer they're going to have to tangle with. And they showed pretty well in this series. So if you're a Celtics fan, go ahead and
championship level.
the hype.
Carl, you said it. Championship level. I think it's undeniable now for 2 reasons. One, of the defensive aspect, but 2, what I've learned from the series is Jason Tatum is like that. Go ahead and stamp him in top 10 because he is like that. He has molded his game into a consistent superstar game in and game out. And now it's more than just scoring. Now that the facilitating and the two-way aspect of his game, he commits to the defensive end, but now the assist number is going up. The career average in assist is 3 per game. Now in the playoffs in this series, 7.3 assists per game. So his willingness to get the other team involved and his scoring not going down. 29 points, like everything going up as well. Like he's really like that. He's really taking it to the next level.
Yeah, and actually, what's impressed me the most is Jason Tatum on the defensive side of the ball this year. Because definitely some praise to get for being consistent for what we know you could do. That's the offensive side of the ball, which is doing very well. But really, if you look back, the game plan in the playoffs against the Celtics team, maybe not as much last year. Really last year too, but when Tatum's been in the playoffs, is like they're going to pick on him. Mm-hmm. You can't really pick on him this year. And I mean, that's maybe the whole defense as a whole is flowing together. Maybe it's not much individually, but he's still playing a massive role on that defense, which has surprised me, really.
I think I just want to draw parallels to, because it is incredible. 7.3 assists per game is like you're controlling the flow of the game. He's not a guard, but that is like high level.
It's crazy how they're operating really without a true point, because Marcus Smart isn't a true point guard. They're operating in that offense.
And that is why they have the best chance, because there isn't one hub that all the offense starts with, like some other teams, and especially when that player isn't your best player. Those other iterations, Kyrie is probably your best player, but when you have a score first guard, I don't necessarily think that it has been working for them with Tatum and Brown. You look across to Utah, I bet if they let Donovan Mitchell handle the ball and become a point guard over an entire season, they'd be better off in the playoffs.
And that pattern works. They've had more success with IT and Terry Rozier at point guards than they had with Kemba and Kyrie with the scoring first point guards.
When it comes to is their best shot to win a chip in the last 5 years, I think definitely, and I think it's because of the competition they'll have to face. Because the IT and Terry Rozier years where they ran into LeBron with the Cavs, no shot. There was a year in the bubble year they lost in 6 to the Heat. They would have had to play a really good Lakers team in the finals. They would have been pretty big underdogs. The last 10 years of NBA basketball has been defined by LeBron and the Warriors. LeBron's gone, and the Warriors were not 100% sure they're back.
They're back, but they're in the West.
They're here.
They're in the West.
Well, I'm like they're all.
I'm not gonna sleep in the Warriors.
I think there's a real chance that they are, but I need to see more than just one really good first round series is what they've had so far.
I hear you.
So because of the competition around them, this is their golden opportunity to finally crack through, not only to make the finals but to win it potentially.
For sure.
I hate it.
We'll see. They're the first team to clinch it and move on, so they await their opponent. And then you guys hope that is the Sixers. We're going to move on to the Sixers and Raptors series.
Before we move on,
go ahead.
Last Celtics thing. Robert Williams still really hasn't played in the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying.
And he is a huge piece of that team.
The ringer.
That's going to be crazy.
But we got to move on to the Sixers and Raptors series, because like this, the first thing you've had to have written this. The first thing says that we've learned from the Sixers Raptors series: existence is pain for both Embiid and for Sixers fans themselves. So,
how'd you know it was me?
Yeah,
the existential dread.
Yeah, pain. The Will Smith look on your face of just.
I wish I had someone to smack after those past 2 games. Let me tell you that.
Just pain. Take it away, man. It's just
where it all comes down to, where it's came down to for the past 8 to 10 years. That's an exaggeration. I think 8 is actually the number. Stops and starts with Joel Embiid for this team. He goes as the team goes. And, it was announced that he obviously tore a ligament in his thumb, is going to play through it. But there's been a huge difference in the Embiid that we got in the first 3 games and the Embiid that we've been getting these past 2 games. Games 1 through 3, he goes 27.7 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists on 51% field goal percentage, 11.3 free throws attempted per game. That's the big one. Games 4 through 5, after the injuries announced, 20.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Still very good numbers, 45% field goal percentage, and drops to 7.5 free throws attempted, and he's also 0 for 5 from 3 in those 2 games. They don't need him. Like, that should be, if Harden is Harden, that should be good enough.
Sustainable, right. That should be sustainable.
But as I'm sure that these 2 guys want to talk to you guys about, he has not been the James Harden that we made our StatMat deep dive about.
Well, those numbers point to the being less aggressive, being less free throw attempts, and not having to touch from 3. I mean, that is directly related to like a shooting.
Physical.
An injury in your shooting hand. But I mean, it's just for the past 2-3 years now, we've seen Joel Embiid go and try to be the shoulder load of the offense for the Sixers in the playoffs, And each time, it through the combination of players that have been next to him, it's been not working, and we're seeing it not work again. And like, I just think there's got to be something else there. There's got to be something else that comes in and helps Joel Embiid. He can't have to do it all on his own.
So when you look back at the Simmons-Harden trade, what happened was we traded a Maserati that won't start for a Maserati with 180,000 miles on it. So I really think this is just evidence that Harden's he's washed. Like, he still is like a really good passer. He's got a great IQ, but his field goal percentage is not just Harden playoff chokes. It's been bad since the first 3 games with us. He's not any worse than he was the last 20 games he played with us. It's just a guy who can't make shots, and he can't make shots because he doesn't have the burst that he had in the past, meaning that defenders can guard him closer because there's no fear of him blowing by him, meaning he gets less separation on his step backs. And that's the biggest reason why we're losing. The combination of Embiid, or not losing, we're in panic mode.
That's crazy. That's where your mind is, though. That you're the series. You're losing the series.
Yeah. That Embiid is not 100%, and Harden isn't good enough to carry anymore. And the other thing is, if you look at what actually the best Sixers lineup was in the regular season, it's not that surprising. It's the starting 5. It's Harden, Maxey, Thibault, Harris, and Embiid. And you can't play Thibault in Toronto. And when Thibault comes back, Game 5, he's out of playoff rhythm because he's a moron and can't play in Toronto. And he has the worst offensive game. And he's a bad offensive player. I've still never seen him play a worse offensive game.
I mean, you guys cheered when he
played.
The cheering
he airballed a layup.
Yeah, but the cheering as he gets subbed out is that's how you demoralize a player.
Yeah, rough one.
But I feel
never thought Thibault was good offensive.
No, but you didn't mean that was bad. You need more than that.
We've known he was bad.
I think
no. He was always. There's one thing that's like eating, like drinking really expired milk is Thibault on normally. This was like drinking cyanide. Like, it kills you immediately.
Yeah, but the only thing I want to say about that is that, like, Thibault, we know can't shoot. We know he's a good athlete. He'll, get a little backdoor cuts. That's all he's going to give you on offense, and maybe he'll hit an open 3.
But he didn't hurt.
But
he was super.
I was going to say, but he was hurt.
Super successful, literally just because they need him on defense.
Right, but he was hurting the offense. Like he hasn't hurt. He hasn't helped the offense. He hasn't hurt the offense. Game 5, he was hurting the offense.
Sure.
But I do feel where you're going with a lot of this. I feel like you're about to pull the reins on a lot of panic that the Sixers fans have.
I'm saying that's my number 2.
No, not you. You are panicking. I'm talking about Kyle wants to pull the reins. You are definitely panicking.
I mean, I think the Sixers, obviously, you still have the game buffer. You can drop one in Toronto. Maybe you're even expected to, and you can come back home. But it's panic.
No.
I mean, if you lose, it's 60-40 right now.
If you lose Game 6, in Toronto, if you're the Sixers, you are the definition of dead in the water in Game 7. Like,
you come back home with no confidence.
Historically, that's not the case, though.
I'm more just
saying. You have Game 7 home.
I'm more just saying.
The 3 teams have come back from 3 out of 4 Game 7. In 1951 Knicks, no one cared. 1994 Nuggets forced Game 7 against the Jazz, who are known for choking in the playoffs. And then the 03 Blazers did it against the Mavericks, and the Mavericks actually trailing going into the 4th.
Here's a problem. How many of their MVPs were injured with a torn ligament in their thumb?
I know Dirk got hurt later that series.
All I'm saying is
later that playoff.
It is a different story when you're not getting a Joel Embiid that is scoring near 30 points a game and shooting at a higher clip than 50%. Like, if he can't, and the tandem, the flip side, when we look at Toronto, when he isn't doing that, what we've seen is an explosion from Pascal Siakam.
Yeah,
he has been the one pulling, pulling the most weight, so to speak, for Toronto. I think he's 54 points over the last 2 games. And what's really indicative of Embiid's kind of sluggishness is Siakam, I think, had 4 personal fouls, 5 personal fouls, down to 2 per game over the last 2. I think he has 4 over the last 2 games, so averaging 2 per game fouls now. You have to be more aggressive with him. You have to make him work on the other end, and they haven't been doing so. So if they can fix those things tomorrow night, then maybe the Sixers will win this. But I feel terrible.
Well,
Terrible.
I do want to go to terrible. I do want to go to the Raptors side of things. I think there's something
I would
to be
like
said.
to say anything about the Sixers real quick.
You go ahead.
I want to talk about the Sixers.
Go ahead. Of course.
The point I was going to make was that literally, like, it's not full panic. Like, we're still probably expected to win this series. But all I was going to say is like 60-40. It's still really bad and a lot different than it looked after we were up 3-0. The Sixers' issues aren't James Harden right now, though. It's not the Embiid thumb injury. We take care of this Raptors team if we play any sort of defense. And long term, yes. Going forward, if we want to have any shot of even making the NBA Finals, then yeah, it is Harden and it is the Embiid. I'm worried about the Raptors right now, and we're not playing defense. Chris Boucher is getting third passes in the paint and just getting easy layups. Pascal Siakam getting whatever he wants, getting to the hole. We're not defending the paint. We're not defending the perimeter.
And whose responsibility is it to defend the paint?
And this was the one thing that you could rely on with the Sixers, really, that we knew we probably, like, we could have off-night shooting. Like, we were bad shooters, right? That's happened. We knew Harden might be a little sluggish coming into the playoffs. We didn't know we were going to play bad defense. And this series should have been a wrap if we played any defense in Game 5.
The Raptors shot 67% from 2 in Game 5.
Every point was in the paint, and they're making good passes, but there shouldn't be second or third passes to Boucher on a cut.
I think there's a correlation. Like, yes, Embiid doesn't guard all 5. Like, right. But he is the patrol of the paint. If he's not providing that physical,
games 1 and 2, just not as much. Now they're getting it every single.
I've never seen Embiid look as unengaged on defense as he was in Game 5. So
but it's a team thing. That's what I'm
but here, Joel Embiid being like a defensive player of the year type candidate, when he can't be physical and you can't just say, okay, we're going to filter that penetration off to Joel and be cool, then you have to help from the weak side. And that's where you're getting your Chris Boucher's wide open for 3, just standing there. That and a little bit of discombobulation, throw that in there as well.
Not even 3. What makes me mad is how a 6'11" guy can get a backdoor cut. I've seen Chris Boucher just walk in and get the easiest
well, you know
pass
what?
for a layup
It's because the guy driving the ship isn't awake sometimes, that being Doc Rivers.
He do be
decided
sleeping.
to play a zone and make without our good defenders in.
Yeah.
Like Shake Milton was like a big and when if you're gonna panic and play zone, I'm fine with panicking to throw something off because your defense isn't working. At least put your good defense. Like he was punishing Thibault for playing horrible offensively. But if you're gonna do something zany like a zone, you got to put Thibault in, and Doc is slow.
Yeah, hey, we've learned anything over the past 2 playoffs.
Top 15 coach all time.
Is that Doc's adjustment in the playoffs shaky, baby? But the Raptors, there is something to be said for the Raptors side of things. This is a team that caught fire towards the end of the regular season, got their way to the 5th seed, and of showing that due to their depth and their length, this is a team that's playing like a 4-forward lineup against y'all, and it's working. And I think due to that, they're showing that they can really hang with any team in the NBA for a game or 2. It really can.
100%. I mean, guys that have been there, albeit bench pieces in the Kawhi year, but they still have that experience. A great coach, and Nick Nurse, Coach of the Year, and just players that are stepping up in these big moments. They're playing like they want to win and really want to win. There's a lot of teams that go down 3-0 and it's deflating. And even if you pull off that game at home, Game 4, you're still a little deflated. I've seen Pascal Siakam really elevate his game from loss after loss, and now they're turning into wins. I've seen OG Anunoby apparently become one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, which is crazy. But
that's classic Sixers playoff.
But still a lot of props to him because these aren't even just open threes. These are good shots, and he's also making the open ones. And we've seen Gary Trent battle back from an illness that didn't keep him out 7 games in a series, like the last Philly-Toronto series when someone had a little illness. Gary Trent came back in literally 1 half. He took off, came back, and now he's playing great again.
And they've won the combination of these games without one without Scotty Barnes, one without Fred VanVleet, doing it without 2 of their best players. It
makes
nuts.
it really is an eyebrow raiser when you see Scotty Barnes come back to the lineup, and now you're like, oh, wait a minute. They got Anunoby, they've got Siakam, they've got Barnes now back. They have resurrected the corpse of Thaddeus Young that they found somewhere. He's playing big minutes.
Crazy.
You have Kem Birch playing minutes. You have Precious Achiuwa and Chris Boucher. So, really, you look at that team. They've got 4 guys who are solidified starters in your run-of-the-mill 40-minute-a-game guys. Siakam, Barnes, Anunoby, Trent. And then they'll rotate in at about 10 to 20 to 15.
when VanVleet's not hurt either. I mean,
right.
Add him to that list.
Well, VanVleet would be their right. He would be their 5th certified starter. Without him, they use Kem Birch. They use Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher, and Young, as we mentioned, to really overwhelm the Sixers. That's been a great adjustment on Nurse's behalf of kind of especially with the lack of aggressiveness out of Embiid, like we talked about. What a great adjustment.
And the lack
Nick
of
Nurse.
shooting. These aren't guards that can defend at the perimeter. I mean, OG Anunoby's not a bad perimeter defender, but outside of Gary Trent, they don't have perimeter defenders. The Sixers just can't shoot.
Right.
So just that was another testament to that adjustment.
They say it's a make or miss league, right? You make shots, a lot of these bugaboos go away. I've also noticed Toronto turn up the aggression as they notice the Sixers turn down their aggression. Like I don't think there's a correlation of point possessions and point scoring going up as you realize that their biggest paint defender isn't going to be as aggressive with that thumb. Go right at him. Let's see how much he can do with it. And once they see that he can't, just continue to go to that. You know, especially when you don't have a Fred VanVleet, you don't have one of your guards. We got to start moving from the inside more. They're turning that up, and let's just see if y'all can defend it in a game 6. Like we were talking about this off camera, and I know it seems really bad for all Sixers fans out there. I know it seems really bad. You're starting to hit the panic button now. If you win game 6 in Toronto, you look back next series, however long in the future, and you look back and say, hey, we won a 6-game series and a 4-5 matchup. At the end of the day, that is normal. Like, yes, it didn't look pretty. Yes, it got a little scary at the end. But this is a team who won a championship not 3 years ago. And this core was still part of that championship. That coach is still part of that championship.
They don't have Lowry,
but they're not gonna. But they're
like the third.
But they have
a
championship DNA. And Pascal Siakam was on that team, so they have a championship DNA. So to think they're gonna roll over and just get swept to me was unrealistic. Especially when it's not a 2-7, 1-8 matchup. It's a 4-5. At the end of the day, you guys are separated by a handful of games. So I think at the end of the day, you look back, if you win this game 6. You look back and be like, "Hey, we won. We won a normal series." It's not unfathomable that it goes 6 games.
It's not the overarching. You are correct in most scenarios, but what's unique and specific to this one is that the Sixers, to a certain extent, have to know they're dead in the water without Embiid. Without Embiid scoring,
but
you can't win the championship. You have to know that.
But you literally
and if you acknowledge
can't look at it that way. You need to look at it exactly like Jake does. Yeah.
Well, what you're saying as players,
James does. Sorry.
Right.
Literally, you look at it as like you win this game clean slate.
100%.
We move on. You can't be in next series thinking about like, oh, but we almost lost it. But you won in 6 games. Move on.
That's why I fully agree with him. I see what you're saying, but it's not that way.
No, I hear you. Do you have any other points before I hit a crackpot conspiracy? No, you could go, but then I want to get a whole vibe check from everyone after that on what we think the outcome's going to be. All right, I'll do a 1 to 10 chances of it being legitimate. What Stephen A. had cooked up on First Take. James Harden is playing poorly. Wait for it. On purpose.
Okay.
To get rid of Doc Rivers, so that Mike D'Antoni can replace him. That's like the ultimate like conspiracy NBA Mad Lib that we just did. Chances 1 to 10 that it's actually a thing that James Harden would do, is doing, can do.
Now, was this because he's talking people close to the James? This is straight out of his mind.
I think this is a Stephen A. This is what I think. I don't have any sources.
I
3
can't.
out of 10.
3 out of 10.
Yeah, I was
Harden wants D'Antoni. He's not playing bad on purpose.
Yeah. 3 out of 10. Yeah,
Harden wants D'Antoni that bad?
But he's not. Harden would
he
prefer D'Antoni, but like he's not.
But I don't think Harden's game isn't like if he was still playing the game that Mike D'Antoni fostered, the bank it for 20 seconds at a shot clock and then pass or shoot, then yeah. But he's not in that type mode.
We saw it just a year ago though. He's definitely.
Yes.
Here's how you.
It's a 3 out of 10. Though.
This is how you determine it, and it's like a lie detector test, except the line is Harden's BMI. And as he begins to loaf it more, it just hikes up and up.
That's his level. His body mass goes up with his level
body
of
fat
discontent.
percentage. That's how you can. That's
with
his
his
lie
level of
detector
discontent.
test.
He's too late in his career to give up a guy that's never won a championship to give up a playoff series. He's too late in his career for that to be true.
Yeah, no.
But quick vibe check. We've talked about. I mean, you can hear the vibes really that we are.
I'm a soulless husk.
Panic, but I want to know what's the outcome in this series when we look 5 days from now.
They might win, and it just doesn't change the fact that I'm empty.
Why are you so empty? Why are you so empty?
No, I get it because after Embiid hits the game winner, you think, oh, it's playoff magic, we can win the title, and then the last 2 games are like, oh, we might not we're not good enough to win the title, and we might have the most embarrassing loss in NBA history. Is that high to low?
It's not even the embarrassment factor. It's more of like the psychological, like imagine you have a bad dream over and over again, right? And it's the same thing that happens every time. And then one time you go past where you've never seen this part of the dream before. Oh my God, the cycle's broken. Oh, we're not in the bad dream. And then you wake up at the beginning of the bad dream again and realize it was a bad dream. That's what it's like being a Sixers fan. And every single year there is something. Every year there is something. It doesn't matter. It will be the smallest enough just to push it over the threshold of like, yeah, you guys aren't going anywhere this year. Embiid thumb injury. You have the Fultz mishaps. You have Ben Simmons being out. You have Ben Simmons not dunking, not shooting.
You have the physics going wonky in Toronto.
It's always
that's the only one out here.
something.
That was the only time we had a championship team, the Toronto year.
I don't want to be a crybaby. We'll be back at him next year.
We'll be back at him next year like you don't have a closeout opportunity and not 2 hours from now.
Thank you. I'm with you, Jim. I want to hear my vibe check that I want to hear from everyone is what is the outcome of this series when we look 5 days from now? How did this series play out?
Oh, so you're saying.
And
I
the
want to
outcome,
know what you guys think happened.
you guys won in 7.
Okay.
They do win in Toronto game
So
6.
I'm not gonna answer your question completely. I'm sorry. So we're gonna win game 6, and then we're gonna get embarrassed by the Heat and lose in 5.
That answered my question.
That's the exact
Losing
question.
7. They're losing in 7.
Damn.
And I think, you know what? I think
Preparing
game 6
yourself for the pain is smart.
Game 6 will be tough. I think game 6 they will show up and they will fight. And coin flip, obviously, if you win there. But I just think they're obviously going to give it their absolute all as far as emotions go, thinking that they can win. And then when you lose, if you lose in Toronto,
I do think the urgency is to avoid a game 7. I don't think they want to fall back on a game 7 at home.
Yeah, I think we win game 6. I'm not too hopeful for this team going forward like I was going into the playoffs. I think we win in game 6. Embiid's not going to let it happen. He's been in a different mode all year. You can talk about the hand. Maybe he doesn't make as many three-pointers anymore. He's not going to let them lose this
I think you win game 7. And how about this? I got a strange feeling that the fans will you're not going the fans won't let them lose game 7. You're not going to embarrass us like
I'm a
that.
spot up in
Yeah. You will. The fans will just will a win in game 7. Not happy. You will send you to your room afterwards, but you're not going to embarrass us.
The Philadelphia fans in game 7 are going to be panicking. Toronto go up 2-0 and we'll be like shrieks of horror. You'll hear
for sure.
How about one of the $40 million men on the roster inspire a win? And maybe we don't have to rely on the fans.
We're going down a rabbit hole. We shall move to my series. Take the heat off y'all a little bit. Suns Pelicans will wrap up a series that also is a little bit closer than a lot of people anticipated, but because of the injury to Devin Booker. So the first thing that we learned in this series, and remember when I said at the top of the segment, some of the things we had to unlearn from the regular season, and I think everyone wanted to give Devin Booker this consolation MVP nod just because he's the best player on the best team in the NBA. And then he goes out in this series. And I think what we've learned is actually just how important Devin Booker is to this Suns team because it looked real drastic for a second when he went out. It just seems like without Devin Booker, Chris Paul cannot have a bad game. Their game 2 loss, Devin Booker goes out. CP3 is 5 for 16 from the field. Game 3, they win. Chris Paul has 28 and 14, 10 from 18 from the field. Game 4 loss. CP3 has just 4 points. Then the Game 5 win on Tuesday night. Chris Paul goes for 22 and 11. Still didn't look that great. There were times where this little pest named Jose Alvarado is just in his jersey.
He really is like
bro.
He's the Pat Bev 2.0.
He really is. He's the next one. He's the next one. I think it got a little understated in the regular season how important Devin Booker was to the Suns.
I said it 2 weeks ago.
Kyle wants his victory lap.
I said it 2 weeks ago.
Go ahead. This is your chance. Take the victory.
First segment was who's the most
important player. There you go.
Booker. Yeah, I mean, I still think their Suns are going to win this series. Their defense is too good, but he needs to score the ball for this team to have an NBA championship run. And when you catch a team, especially in the Western Conference, and a team that likes to run and plays at one of the fastest paces in the league and can get hot with CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, who can score, you need a guy like Devin Booker to match that, or the series might get tight like it just did. So, I mean, I think the Suns are fine long term. So what we have learned about them is what I knew, what other people are starting to learn, but I still think they have, a really elite defense. I still think now after last night, they've settled back down. It's not as scary anymore, not like the other 3-2 series we just talked about. But I kind of want to say what we learned about the Pelicans real quick for their future. This CJ McCollum deal has worked out amazingly for them.
The fit is better than I can have
If
anticipated.
you look at just their roster now, I mean, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, the guy we're really high on this podcast.
No, he is.
I am as well. No, I am as well.
He getting cooked.
I like Jonas Valanciunas. And as
He getting
Zion,
cooked.
who knows what his there's questions about his future if it's in New Orleans or not. But say it is. I've learned a lot about this Pelicans team. I think they get bounced first round, but are kind of a team that can get dangerous in the West quickly.
There's a chance that next year they're a top 2 seed.
Yes.
Because
If Zion comes back,
if Zion comes back,
it springs this team. I
and
don't know about
keeps
top
up
2, but I like that this team has a high ceiling.
that's the best case
Yeah.
scenario. I'm not predicting that.
This team
That's the best case
has a
scenario.
high ceiling.
I like Willie Green as a coach.
I love Willie Green as a coach.
Yeah.
Since the All-Star break with CJ McCollum, just put the facts out there. 13-7. McCollum has averaged 24 points a game. 4 rebounds, 6 assists on 58% true shooting from the field, a career best true shooting percentage at that for CJ McCollum. So not only McCollum making the Pelicans better, it seems that McCollum going into a fit where he's the number one guy has blossomed this game. And I think that McCollum he's like too mature. He's too mature of a game and too mature of an NBA player to be the number 2, the second fiddle. That's a Lehigh educated brother there, by the way. So I think he's just a little bit too educated of a basketball
He's
player.
kind of a number 2 though behind Ingram.
But I guess
they're
in
a
skill,
1A, 1B.
I guess in skill
I
wise,
feel like it's a 1A, 1B.
but in leader, undoubtedly, CJ McCollum is the leader of that team, and he wasn't in the Trailblazers, and you can see it in his demeanor. He's the tone setter when they go on the court, and I think it's helped them.
That's kind of my point. Him being in Portland has made him fine with. He's not going to be upset if Brandon Ingram shoots 29 shots and scores 30 points because he played with Lillard and is fine with taking a step back when another player is hot, and he knows that role of going to the hot hand so well, and it's just the veteran that the Pelicans that fits them perfectly for now and for the future.
I think the Pelicans had such a young core and a promising core. You got rid of Drew Holiday, who was that elderly, that veteran statesman, that guy who kind of had that leadership. And then there's nobody there. And now your best player is a second, third year guy who has trouble staying on the court. Where was that leadership coming from? You get it from now Willie Green and CJ McCollum. And now look, just like Chris Paul is able to do, you get leadership with a bunch of young guys who can hoop, and you scare some people in the playoffs. You really do.
So James just admitted he's scared. That's number one. He was trying to say he wasn't worried.
When did I say I wasn't worried? I said we are 3-2 in a much different way.
Anyways,
I'd be foolish not to. We were just tied 2 days ago.
I know Zion Williamson has made it clear he wants some sort of out. He wants to be traded. He wants them to wanted them to overhaul the team. He wasn't happy with what was going on in New Orleans. Zion Williamson should wake up and
change the heart,
and be thankful he's in New Orleans. Because if he tried to pull this in New York, in Philadelphia, in Boston, in LA, in a sports market that actually cared, he would be roasted alive if this team was fighting for their life in the playoffs and there's not a darn thing wrong with him sitting on the sidelines. He's the perfect puzzle piece to slide in and make them, like Matt said, a potential top seed. It is despicable.
You think it's him? You think it's him not
I don't think there's a darn thing. I think he's probably out of shape and you couldn't play him at this point. But, if he's rehabbing and if he's getting ready and if he's staying ready, there's no reason he shouldn't be playing.
I think it's part of the Pelicans trying to protect him and not have him get hurt for future years.
I don't think he's ready.
You're
No. Here's the thing. Could he hit an NBA court and play and not get injured?
At this point,
yes. Could he go and be Zion and not get injured? No. And I think that's what they want. He's saying him posting those videos is I could play, but the Pelicans are I want you to go and be Zion. If you try to go and be Zion, you're gonna get hurt again.
I actually think it's the opposite. I think he could play, but his body's not in good enough shape that he could sustain his health for a long period of time. So I think the Pelicans want him to get in good enough shape that he can play without getting hurt all the time.
When he was healthy,
but
he
his
wasn't
body
in
not
good
being in
enough
good enough shape is also
when he was healthy.
Him not being able to.
No, but I think
exactly,
if he played tomorrow, is there a shot he puts up 35 and 20?
No.
Yes.
No.
I wouldn't predict
35 and 20, Matt.
Okay, 15, 35 and 15.
Which
no, I don't think so.
I don't think there is. But that does brings up Ayton. Man might have saw something tumbling down the street and picked it up, and he said, "Oh, what's this?"
A bag.
2 handles.
A bag.
Stuff. He's got a little. I'm watching without Devin Booker, and he's hitting these little 15-foot like turnarounds. I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? That he has been definitely an improved player when Booker's not on the court offensively.
And sometimes you get little blessings in disguise. And we got a report from Woj. Jake showed me not too long ago that Devin Booker is eyeing a return sooner than people have anticipated this series. So you come back, you get Devin Booker, maybe even before the series is over. And now everything's good. Everyone's back. Everyone's healthy. But you've shown Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson, Cam Payne. You've shown them where they can step up when Devin Booker goes off the floor. And I think that's invaluable and something that is hard to emulate, something that's hard to do until it happens. You never want it to happen, but now I know where Devin Booker's gaps lie and where Mikal Bridges can fill those in, where DeAndre Ayton can fill those in for a long-term and sustainable playoff run. I think that they found that a little bit, especially in that Game 5 win, because Devin Booker's out. Chris Paul goes on a lapse where he's not as productive. Jay Crowder hasn't been giving in the series that we thought and we hoped he could. But then you look at Mikal Bridges with that playoff career high 31, DeAndre Ayton getting the best of Valanciunas all series. That's what I've learned is where those role players can really step up for the Suns and how much impact they can have. I think that's
exactly it.
Invaluable going forward.
And that's what Devin Booker being out has shown us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's we knew the Suns got better this year. Obviously made it to the finals last year, but ended up being the best team in the NBA.
Yeah.
And this series with Booker being hurt has put that in the spotlight, right? And I know they've lost a couple now that he's been hurt, but seeing how these guys have progressed, Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton couldn't do this stuff in the playoffs last year. DeAndre Ayton was getting picked on.
No, he was getting cooked in the playoffs last year.
And now we talk about his offense. His defense is massively improved, right? So I think the Suns as a whole are – maybe we didn't learn this because it's really happened over the entire season, but they're really solidifying everything that we thought this team would be going into the playoffs. And, I mean, if they get out of this – I mean, I don't think they lose to the Pelicans, but if they get out of this, they're still probably the most dangerous team in the West.
I will cape up a little bit for Ayton, challenger narrative, because he did kind of shut down AD in the first round last year. Give him hats off for that.
Yeah, he shut down a hobbled AD coming off a plane.
I mean, I know AD's an easy dunk. I know. AD's an easy dunk on.
He did. And then what happened?
Well, all right, yeah. Hey,
then he went against Jokic.
Right.
And then Zubac.
All right, well, the Zubac one's a little Zubac. But then he's asking, hey, chase around Giannis. Like, that's not like he gets
I didn't
asked.
invoke Giannis's name. It's the Zubac one.
The Zubac one's a little.
That's the one that hurts me a lot.
It's a little hairy. Yeah,
that's the one that hurts me a lot. All right, we got to move on. We got to do this last segment pretty quickly. We're running up against time here, but the NFL draft is coming up Thursday as we're recording Wednesday. So we don't have time to get up in the full scope of things. If you want that full scope of things, check out our YouTube channel where our guy Matt V has broken down a position group pretty much with all of us
Straight
at this
Facts
point.
Podcast on YouTube. You'll see our logo there.
It's going crazy.
Matt V did a great job.
It's going crazy. He's going crazy. So we broke down all the position groups. So we'll cover this from a little bit of a broader point of view. We got some little player awards to give out for this year's draft based on players from previous drafts that we now can see what they've panned out into the NFL. So I like these. The first one we're going to do is the Jalen Reagor Award. Or the J.J. Arthur-Whiteside Award. Whichever one you want to choose. Yeah. Eagles Receiver Award. Player most likely to be taken way too early over a better player at their position. So, Jake, you want to go first? The player
I will.
It's really a player you're kind of doubting a little bit.
I view this more as almost like it's more circumstance than it is who this player is. I still think this player could be a good player, but it's something that Kyle said in his cornerbacks video when debating number one, Derek Stingley Jr. in a lot of people's eyes versus Ahmad Gardner, our guy Sauce, who the stat on him is 0 touchdowns allowed, right? 1,100 pass attempts, 0 touchdowns allowed. I don't care who he was playing. He could have been playing Temple. He could have been playing Temple.
He was.
USF.
He was.
It doesn't matter. Those are as close to pro athletes as you get without being pro.
I hear you.
And he didn't let up a touchdown against the other team's best receiver. So this is less about Derek Stingley and more to me about I think Ahmad Gardner is going to be clearly. You can make a case for him. I like a couple of the other players. You can make a case he'll be the best defensive player in this entire draft. And I think that Stingley will go early because of you asked Matt, Kyle, you asked him which teams are going to be after cornerbacks. The Giants have 2 picks in the top 10, and they are a team that could be after one. So I think you'll see some movement. You'll see a guy go like Stingley, who maybe might go a little earlier than he should.
I think the Jets might take a corner at 4 as well.
Another team.
Jets building some things. Kyle, who's going to go too early?
For me, it's really on the same reasoning as Jake's. Mine's Aiden Hutchinson. Might end up being the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. And while I think he's a top 10 prospect, no doubt in my mind, I like 2 other edge guys better.
You like Thibodeau. Yeah, you like Thibodeau.
I like
better.
Kayvon and I like Trayvon Walker better than him. So, I mean, to me, it's
Georgia
like,
boy.
is Aiden Hutchinson going to have a good NFL career? I would probably bet, yes, he's going to be a top 10 pick, and he fully deserves to be there. But is he going to be number 1 worthy when we looked back at this draft in 5 years and you see how stacked edge was as a position? And when you see that 2, maybe even 3 other edge rushers went top 10, is he going to be the one of those handful of guys that I wanted to take at 1 if I was taking an edge rusher? No, to me, he's 3rd. I mean, Thibodeau to me is not by far, it's tough to say by far, but like clearly in my eyes, the best at the position. And Trayvon Walker is a guy that a lot of people are falling in love with that I actually had to go up and look up tape of yesterday when I was doing the video with Matt. And I was like, oh yeah. Whoa.
And you realize,
he could be a stud too.
The Kyle epiphany. Oh.
I'm going to push back because that's my Jalen Reagor award.
Go ahead.
Trayvon Walker.
Really? That's a Georgia defensive lineman. I tend not to doubt Georgia defensive lineman.
I watched a lot of Georgia this year. He wasn't a top 2 player on that Georgia front 7.
Doesn't mean you're not going to be a good NFL player.
No, I'm not sure. But like Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean were like the bedrocks of that Georgia defense. And when you have that, you're getting single teamed a lot more.
True.
Someone like Aiden Hutchinson, everyone on that offensive line is focused on double, triple teaming.
He's a little focus on David Ojabu too. He's a little focus on David Ojabu too. Yeah.
I mean, they just have a stacked team. It's just stacked. Yeah.
And I just people love to talk themselves into people who have great tape without remembering the college football season. And I'm not saying he's going to be Jalen Reagor, even though I'm giving him the Jalen Reagor award.
Yeah,
honestly, none of these guys.
Here's the thing. Jalen Reagor just got picked. We're not saying like it's going to be bad.
It's the overthinking of it is the spirit of the award. Like Justin Jefferson is right there for Jalen Reagor, but it's like, ooh, Jalen Reagor, blah, blah, blah. And with Trayvon Walker, if you pick him at 11, great pick. You pick him at 2, bad pick.
Yeah. Mine kind of is like yours, Matt, where it's like the overthinking of it. Mine, like if we break this question down, most likely to be taken too early over a better player in their draft, I'm gonna go Drake London out of USC because if anyone's gonna get taken over Jamison Williams, it's gonna be him. And I'm starting to really look back at this Jamison Williams tape, and I'm like, what? I get the knee injury. I completely understand, but I've watched other players come back. Watch a teammate of his come back from a very similar injury. He looks fine. So, and I watched what this dude was before that knee injury, and I'm like, look at the skill. Look at the
copy
speed.
Paste on the Bama wideout. He got the Bama wideout startup kit.
And Drake London is coming off, albeit a much less severe injury, but he's coming off a foot injury himself. Yeah. So if we're gonna be worried about injury, why are we look at Jamison Williams, man? Like please.
And receiver is probably, when we talk about these things happening, receiver is the position it happens at the most, I would say. Where overthinking. Like you could look to a lot of guys around the league that get picked higher than they should over a guy who ultimately ends up being way better. I mean, I can invoke names, but I'm not gonna bring up any hurt pieces for any fans of franchises out there.
Let's not. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. This one hurts me a little. It should hurt the Jaguars more, but he's my backup quarterback now. The Blaine Gabbert Award, and that's going to be the most overhyped QB in this draft.
Pick him number 3.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Could be also the Jameis Winston Award, but I'm glad you guys didn't do that.
Or Mitch Trubisky.
Because to be honest, the fact that this is an award is because it happens a lot. It happens a lot. You overhype a QB, even in a draft that doesn't have a lot of QB talent. You overhype one because you want there to be a good QB so bad. So, Matt, I'll start the far end this time. Most overhyped QB in the draft.
Malik Willis.
That's tough because our guy Matt V has him going as the first quarterback off the draft.
Matt believed he was fifth.
Fifth.
Yeah, Matt's mock draft, he thinks Willis will probably be first, but Matt is actually low on him.
He threw really pretty balls at the combine.
They all do.
And NFL teams are just desperate for a quarterback. understandably, because it's the most important position in all of sports.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy who's such a question mark. He took so many sacks at Liberty. His sack rate is like 20% higher than the second most, which was Sam Howell, who also I don't like. But it's people are so desperate that they only pick at like the tape that they like and look at that great pro throw. Look at that great pro throw. And they're not looking at all like he never throws over the middle of the field because he's afraid to. He only throws to the outside. That's someone that is not ready for an NFL offense. This is someone who you need to cook in a QB development for a couple years. You can't go from Liberty to being worth a top 10 pick unless you were the Michael Jordan of Liberty. And he was a really good quarterback, but
I was gonna say some people are calling him the Michael Jordan of Liberty,
but
man.
like Josh Allen's an anomaly. Josh Allen was bad his first year, and he wasn't that good his second year, and then he exploded. If you have that patience, take him. But if you're expecting him to start from day one, don't take Malik Willis.
I hear that. Kyle, most overhyped QB.
Yeah, for me, and this is really in the last 2 weeks of what the opinion's been on him is Desmond Ridder.
I kind of like Desmond Ridder.
To me, Desmond Ridder is like I really do like guys that are winners. Obviously, a huge winner in college. That especially at the quarterback position, that's a big thing. He's proved he could do it before, albeit a lower level of football. But to me, it's like you can't point to one thing Desmond Ridder does that's the best thing of any quarterback. Like you break down the quarterback position, arm strength, getting outside the pocket, making the right play. I don't think Desmond Ridder is number one on any of those categories. Put it all together, he's a pretty good quarterback. But this is more of a recency thing where I'm seeing Desmond Ridder like as high as the second quarterback off the board. Have Desmond Ridder as QB5 and solidified there? Yeah, because that's a second, maybe even third round pick in this draft. If Desmond Ridder goes in the first draft on my favorite team, I'm mad at my GM in that. Matt V said yesterday to me, I forget if we said it on the video. I don't think we did because we didn't talk quarterbacks. That he's hearing the Steelers like Desmond Ridder like second best after Malik Willis. Like if they don't trade up for Willis, there's a good shot they take Ridder over guys like Pickett, Corral, and these guys, and I just don't see it with Ridder.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, for me, Desmond Ridder is a guy that, like kind of what you said, pretty good at a lot, doesn't excel at anything.
I'm not using the first round pick on him.
I definitely wouldn't.
Yeah,
Jake, hit him with it.
I have put this in to rile up Kyle, but Kenny Pickett, I think
You're a troll.
Getting a little bit too much hype, just a little bit too much hype. Like I don't think
everyone's low on him.
I don't think he's going to be the worst quarterback prospect. I don't think he's that bad of a quarterback prospect. I think he has some paths to success in the NFL, but like, what archetype can you point to that has had success in the NFL that he like falls neatly into? I don't know if there is one. I'm always a little cautious on guys who are any sort of reliant or not over reliant, but like I would say Pickett relies on the run too much without being a high level athlete to exist in the NFL. Like, and granted, I'm not the majority. I don't think Josh Allen should run. I don't want Lamar Jackson as my quarterback because I think that ultimately that end of it leads to you getting hurt or doing something that loses you a game. You're right. Maybe in terms of hype, he's not, but I know that you're hyped on him, so I have.
Yeah. No, there's some people.
The thing with Pickett that's positive, I'll let the homer go last because he's watching the most. But what's really likable about Pickett is that you could see his progression because he was the starter for Pitt for so long, and the way he developed and worked on his game to become a first-round quarterback potentially is the kind of hard work and work ethic you want in a first-round pick. And the fact that he led Pitt to an ACC title, like that's a huge achievement. Pitt's never won a conference title by themselves in the history of their football program. Part of it because it was independent for a while, but when they're in the Big East, they never won one.
They won a national championship in the 80s.
Yeah. No, Georgia did.
In the 80s, I said.
Right. But this Pitt football since 2000 has been really poor, except for like a decent year in like the Big East once. And he brought them to a height they haven't seen in this generation.
Yeah, sure. Pitt football is an average. They've always produced good pros, though. Is where we could put that. to me, Jake's point about the running is like Pickett isn't reliant on the run.
Right. It's
like
not
watching Kenny Pickett and like to that progression. Pickett's going to try to be the pocket passer. He's going to get through 3 reads. And I think it's actually a plus that he knows when to get out of the pocket and he is good using his legs. The thing that I've loved the most is just like the confidence I've had with him at quarterback being a fan is something I've really never had since like Donovan McNabb when as an Eagles fan, right? And then Carson Wentz there for a little pocket before he got hurt in the year he was going to win MVP. So like I've seen Kenny Pickett go out and like just win games, make throws, and not really miss throws. He skies them a little high. That's like the only missed throws I've seen as Pickett is he does sky him a little high, but he was making throws last year that are just like throw out the arm strength that, Malik Willis is going to have over him. Throw out the hand size, which I think that's a tiebreaker when you're looking at prospects. I don't think that's a downside on an NFL prospect. That's like if I'm between 2 guys and they're really close,
I don't know if I ever
one guy
asked
has a
grown
bigger
man how
hand
big
size.
his hand is.
Right. Like to
I
me,
don't
they're
think I'll
like
ever do that.
the throws I saw him make last year and just being a football player and playing the quarterback position, I've seen like I think he's QB1 in my eyes. I'm not mad if you go Willis. I'm not mad if you go Corral. But if you have anyone else over him, I think it's crazy.
I mean, Kenny Pickett did the same thing that happened with Desmond Ridder. They got the Dan Orlovsky cosign on the big board. If you go on Dan Orlovsky's board, if he breaks down your game, you're gonna start shooting up draft boards, man. You just get a lot of hype around you. They both got it. Mine is you mentioned him, Sam Howell. I would just look at like I don't even know if that many people are high on him. Maybe I'm just using this as a way to say I'm not a Sam Howell believer. I don't. Like I have a lot of stock in Sam Howell because I don't know who's really thinking Sam Howell's going to go like as a high draft pick. He's going to go as a backup somewhere. But I just look at his career. It was a long career at North Carolina, but nothing jumps out at me on the tape. He's not athletic. Doesn't make like the greatest throws in the world. I think he's a product of having like being in a not great QB draft class, so he stays afloat. Like if he's in a deep QB draft class, we're talking about him. 5th, 6th, maybe not getting drafted, but he gets the benefit of not being in a really deep QB draft class.
What happened with Howell is he had his best year the COVID year.
Yeah.
And North Carolina was great. Mm-hmm. And then he got all this hype going in last year, and he was okay.
Yeah.
And that's just – I think he could be good. I like him more than like Desmond Ridder. But he's the only he's 4th on my board.
Let's not forget, too, that year Matt talking about. Yeah, Sam Howell did play well. UNC won a lot of football games. But they also ran the ball more than any other team in the ACC and have 2 guys, Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, who just had productive rookie seasons at the running back position. And then you take those weapons away from him, and Sam Howell has a bad year last year. And UNC was a preseason favorite to be the other – because when you have to take Clemson out when you talk about the ACC. Like, they were the favorite outside of Clemson to win the ACC last year.
They were ranked like 11th preseason.
Yeah. To me, I don't think Sam Howell is an NFL starter at any point in his career, a productive one. He'll get his opportunities, of course. I don't think Sam Howell is ever going to be your starting quarterback week 1 and you're confident in that guy, truthfully. If you can't win in the ACC, you can't.
And the top-heavy conference, that was going to be be one of my points. Yeah, the top-heavy conference like this is –
The Coastal is wild.
Who's the top team? Who's the top team in the Pitt? Top team in the Coastal.
No, but every year it's someone else. It's Virginia, and then it's
Miami. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. All right, real quick for the last one. I just need a name and a sentence as to why the Russell Wilson Award, a player who had a great college career but is going to, for some reason, just fall to a later round. Jake, who's your award?
Yeah, I benefit from being the first person here because I think this one's easy. Kenneth Walker's probably going to be
the only name that I can really think of.
He's going to be taken like the 3rd or 4th round, and really the staggering part is he's probably going to be like the 3rd or 4th running back taken. I would say there are some realities where he ends up 1st, 2nd, but I think that there's a lot of people who like Breece Hall. There's a lot of people who like Isaiah Spiller. It's just pretty much what does your team need?
Right.
So he's a guy who we're going to look back on in a couple of years, be like, wow, he was a great college player. Why did he go after these guys? And yeah, we'll see.
Kyle.
Nakobe Dean. I have a sneaky feeling he's going to be a late 1st, early 2nd, where 2 months ago he was a mid 1st, easy, like 15 to 16 range. He was the best player on arguably the best college defense of all time.
Ever.
Of all time. I mean, like, I think he's like super good. He's going to be one of those guys like me and my buddy, Shy. Mm-hmm. We look back at like drafts all the time. I don't know why Shy loves drafts, but every time we're talking, we get into drafts. And there's always a guy that goes behind 10 guys you've never heard of because they didn't have good NFL careers. So if Nakobe Dean drops to 35, drops to 40, he's going to be a guy in my eyes that we look back on and was better than every single person outside of, the here and there outlier going up to like pick 20.
And shined in the national championship. Was all over the national championship. Matt, give me a name.
I'm going to pick another one who shined in a national title game, but then had some injury problems later, and that's Clemson's Justin Ross. He was just as good as T. Higgins in that 2018 title year as a freshman. He was very good the next year with some injury issues. He had a lot of injury issues 2020. And last year he played with a horrible quarterback. He's going to fall to like the third or fourth. Uyagalele. And he's going to fall to like third, fourth round. Clemson receivers always hit. Jersey I'm wearing, Hunter Renfrow, fifth rounder, hit. T. Higgins, late first rounder, great pick. DeAndre Hopkins, late first rounder, great pick. Clemson, one of the best wide receiver schools in the country. Taking him in the third or fourth round is going to be a great pick.
And it's a deep class, so he will be available. Yeah, like you're saying in those later rounds. Yeah, I'd love Flyer on
that. That's a good.
That is a really good one. Jake, you took mine. I don't have another one. So we're almost out of time for this episode of Straight Facts. We can get some shots up at the buzzer. As always, got something to say at the buzzer. Who's got some?
Really quick, came up in conversation. Pretty polarizing. Give me a yes or no answer. Could you beat up a emu in a fight?
Y'all be sleeping on wild animals, man.
Not me.
Y'all be sleeping.
I'm like it has like ill intentions towards you. It's not like a boxing match or anything, but like an emu, like the emu. You ever see?
No, I look it up. I'm taking this thing out. You kidding me?
How big?
I think you
is
sleep
an emu? How big?
Can't they get like 6 feet or something stupid like that?
I don't know. 5.7 feet.
Okay, so
Look
these wild animals are like instinctually trained to like fight for their life.
Yes,
I'm a human who's been
so
like
am I.
How many fights you been in your life, man? Like this thing fights for its life every day.
Yeah,
this thing is in survival mode every day. With that being said, I'm beating the crap out of it.
do I if I get weapons, I'm going to beat the guy.
No, barehanded.
No, I'm going to lose.
I think
not an emu. I hear what you're saying, Matt, and there are a lot of animals that people will be surprised to hear me say. I don't think I could beat in a fight. I can take an emu though.
I think emus are the one that stick their head in the dirt. Like for that reason, like you're dumb, boy. Like I can't let one of those.
Nothing that doesn't have arms can beat me in a fight.
Not it just has a beak though, and it has a long neck
on land.
Pause. No way.
Land.
No way. No way.
Oh, dude, I'm taking this thing out. I'm watching an emu fight a kangaroo right now.
Oh, a kangaroo, it's got no chance.
No, it's like a baby kangaroo. And the emu,
that
the
thing
emu
is 6 foot.
Now a kangaroo. I've heard people say they think they can beat a kangaroo, and if there's anyone out there who thinks they can beat a kangaroo in a fight, you are so delusional.
Got a better chance of beating prime Mike Tyson.
Kyle, first of all, you think it's going to punch you until it hops on its tail and drops.
When it hits you with a drop kick, that'd be tough.
There's a hole in your
ribs, breaks your entire rib cage. It's over.
All the time we spend worrying about Philadelphia sports, James spends worrying about Australian animals.
I'm going to tell you all a story one time. Me and my college roommate, Ron, shout out to Ron. I hope he's listening to the podcast. We watched a documentary on Netflix. It's called The World's 72 Most Dangerous Animals. And it was based in Australia, which is why I'll never travel to the continent of Australia. But the things that I saw out there in this world that can take you out, oh, man, I'm terrified.
Crazy. I don't even know they exist.
I'm absolutely terrified. I'm cool on U.S. soil. You guys got something to say at the buzzer?
Buying a new car sounds really fun until you realize all you're thinking about is you're terrified of anything messing up the car.
Yeah,
so like it's great for like the first like day, and then you're like, I'm just worried about every little pothole, every little.
And you live in Pennsylvania, so good luck worrying about the potholes, buddy.
So enjoy if you aren't like neurotic like I am. Enjoy getting a new car, but it's been a little stressful.
It's a tough market.
It's really nice to have it. Overall, I really.
What kind of car did you get? What kind of car?
2022 Civic.
Ooh, there you go.
Ooh, the 22s. Okay. The 22s on them. Matt taking me home. Kyle, you got something to say at the buzzer?
Not really, but I had a conversation
I don't like
today.
when you do this.
I had a conversation at work today, and I do think that the Eagles should take Kenny Pickett. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Snuck it in there.
I know we talked about Pickett. I know we talked about Pickett, but we didn't talk about the Eagles. I think the Eagles should take Kenny Pickett. Jalen Hurts is not.
Give me the person who you were talking to's number. In fact, I want to call right now.
I didn't even peep how Kyle show up.
The Eagles
vintage shady jersey. Eagles he ready for Howie to do something crazy tonight.
Thursday could be a horrible day Friday could be like the biggest day in Philadelphia sports radio history if we take Kenny Pickett in the first round and the Sixers lose.
That'd be sick.
It'll be mayhem.
I legitimately was looking through the picks and I was like, okay, yeah, you probably take a defensive guy. But then I was thinking, like, I don't want Jalen Hurts to play well this year. It's like weird to say because I don't want him to be our future quarterback.
Weird thing to say.
I don't want him to be our future quarterback.
Well, why, if he can perform well, why don't you?
Because
I don't think he can win a Super Bowl.
A successful team.
I don't think Jalen Hurts can win a Super Bowl.
Wait a minute. We're coming close to one of my takes. Okay, and why not?
He's not good enough. And he's never going to be good enough.
Because he can't
He's
win
not
with
a
the running
quarterback, though. He's a mobile quarterback. He's not a running quarterback. Lamar Jackson is a running
They design
quarterback.
runs for Jalen Hurts. He most certainly is.
Okay, I'm not going to lie.
Just because they design runs for him.
I'm going to be ruined.
Sound
Once
running
the
for
NFL season comes around, I'm going to be ruined hard for the Eagles. I'm going to be rooting for Jalen Hurts. But now that we're in the offseason and you're thinking, especially around draft time, teams are shaking up. Free agency is going to open up or already opened up. Stuff's going to change. I had a time to reflect, and I'm like, I don't think Jalen Hurts will ever win a Super Bowl as a quarterback. I don't think he's good enough.
Kenny Pickett is, though.
Yes, he is.
Unbelievable. All right. All I gotta say at the buzzer is as the weather, because of the tongue twister, as the weather starts to get really nice, man, and you start to like go outside and start to go to the beach and everything. Let's remember. Let's just everybody take into consideration, okay, that when you go outside in public, it's not just you and the people you're around with and the people you're there out there at these beaches and everything. There's other people around too. I can't even get into what I really like the specific example I have in my head. Just be mindful of when you're out in places and you're in a group that there's people next to you and there's people behind you and there's bro, really just
No,
I'm getting hot. Like I'm getting hot.
People don't know. And what I've noticed is like people are like acting different after COVID outside now. Too. Like people really don't care.
To lose their minds.
People don't care.
People start to lose. I actually think I might be like I might have an older soul than I realized. I don't like teenagers, man. I realize that.
Not this generation of teenagers.
I really don't like teenagers.
Every generation.
Every generation.
Fair.
But I see them walk into places and like when they come into my job, I just automatically like.
There's a group of them that go to my gym that they will congregate in the locker room and just scream curse words.
I really have a get off my lawn mentality.
No, I'm washed. I'm washed, and I am that's.
I had a mom return a phone because her daughter was crying that she got midnight blue instead of regular blue.
Yeah, the mom would.
The mom's got to do better.
You tell your daughter.
On the mom.
You tell your daughter I had a Nokia brick when I was 10. You tell your daughter. It actually is teenagers. I'll tell you all off camera. But we're out of time for this episode of Straight Facts. It was a great one. Shout out to LeVar Arrington, TJ Hoosman's out of Plexico Burst, and the whole Up On Game podcast network. Shout out to my guys, Jake Galley, Kyle Sirik, Ed Stat, Matt Robinson. They're already sweating in their chairs for a Game 6 that hasn't even happened yet in Toronto. But I'm James Jackson. These have been the facts.
Straight up.
I knew he was going to do it.